Stein, very excited to have you here. We are going to talk all about T2D3 and everything that you've been building around turning the book that you wrote about 5 years ago into an operating system that is now centralizing what B2B SaaS companies can use in order to grow. And I'm very excited to ask you a couple of questions around what was at the core of building this new project and what people can expect to get out of the box and how to make the most out of this new tool.
Yeah, very excited. I've been working on this now for about 5-6 months, but of course it's been in my head not much longer. Ever since, well, even before starting Kalungi, one of the things that helped start Kalungi was that when I became a fractional CMO, Antoine, I had a lot of pleasure using software and templates to make my work more predictable, standardize it, and we use an acronym called STOP: standardize, templatize, optimize, and productize. And it was always pretty hard at Kalungi to get to the productize part because we have standard methodologies, best practices. We have a lot of that in our playbooks that we sometimes share with clients. Some of those are internal. Turning that into a software product was always tricky because we felt that we constantly were adding more to our playbook. We had new plays and new best practices and new templates. And it was also something that Kalungi has always been probably a little busier than we like it to be. Always have a lot of clients. And so we never honestly also set enough time aside to turn everything that we did in the last 8-9 years now with Kalungi into a product that people could also use when they wanted to do a lot of this themselves. So now AI comes around. I'm a software developer by training. That's how I started my career. And now that it is a lot easier to focus when you build software, to focus on the business side of it, the communication, the content, the workflow, and less on whether the button is the right shape or it's green or blue or yellow. I got a lot of energy. This is probably now 6 months ago or so. And then about 4 months ago, we really started building. Got a lot of energy and said, hey, this is the time. Let's sort of turn all this intellectual property that have all this experience, everything that we've learned from clients into something that everybody else can use, even if they cannot afford or they're not interested in hiring a Kalungi consultant or a Kalungi CMO. So that got us very excited. The other part of this is that the audience that we service, a lot of the marketers that have read T2D3, that are part of our community, that have done the masterclass, kept asking, hey, Stein, where's the new version of T2D3 that has all the AI prompts and that tells me how to use Claude and tell me how to use all these new AI tools, Jasper, and all these tools that allow you as a marketer to build content, to do design, to do all kinds of project management, all these things, they're now so much easier, right? Where's the updated version of our T2D3 growth manual, which still, by the way, is totally applicable. None of those things have actually aged that much. But of course, you don't do those things the same as you did it 6 years ago. So that's, Antoine, how the T2D3 operating system was born. And it started relatively quickly. I think in a couple of weeks, we had something that we felt was worth sharing, and we already shared it with some fractional CMOs. They got very excited about it. And it was basically an app version of our Playbook, right, where people could, not very different from when you use Monday.com or Asana or Trello or some form of project management tool, where they could just use that themselves. And it had a couple of other aspects added. We love to use OKRs, and when we manage marketing with an OKR management module in it. And it had a lot of the templates that sit behind the playbook, like how do you do this? How do you do that? How do you manage an event? How do you set up your marketing automation system? All these things that we have really templatized over the years. What nurture campaigns do you need as a B2B SaaS company? I think our playbook at some point, when it peaked out at some point, then we started standardizing it a little bit more again and cleaned it up. But somebody that had 1,200 different things in it that you had to do in the course of, let's say, 12 months, if you wanted to do everything that you could possibly do as a B2B SaaS company on the T2D3 growth journey. So that's kind of what we poured into the app. And that was the first iteration. But then we started to show it to people. And it became very clear that we needed to take a completely different leap to make use of all the different capabilities with AI right now. And so I'll do a quick demo in a second. But it's become now something, I think, of a much bigger magnitude, Antoine, where you can argue that what started with the book Syntropy, where we said, hey, what are the things that AI is not going to be doing anytime soon? the curation of phenomenal content, the creative side of marketing, the super communication part you talked about, right? It involves human communication, all the flaws that come with that, right? The team dynamics, the things that you do when you have conflict, all these things that are much harder to scale with AI. How do you as a human do all that and then envelop yourself and completely surround yourself with not only every Claude and ChatGPT and Canva and HubSpot MCP connector and all the things that you, of course, should be wired into, but also a system that organizes all those things, right? That you're not every day reinventing how to set up your projects in Claude, how to run your agents, what goals to run into your Claude coding environment. All those things, of course, should not be new and completely redone every time when you do a nurture campaign or when you start a marketing strategy for a B2B SaaS company. So the product really brings all those things together. So that's what we built, Antoine, and you've seen some of it. Maybe give a little bit of your thoughts before I kind of show some of it.
Yeah, before you walk us through what the CMO actually does using, takes advantage of the tool, I can talk a little bit about my experience with the tool and then ask you a couple of questions. But I'm super excited about what this does and how it bridges the gap between the strategic portion of being a fractional CMO and kind of what I've been doing for the past 5 years and what you've been doing for, with hundreds of B2B SaaS and what I've been doing with a little bit over 20 B2B SaaS companies. It's that first piece of bringing the customer along their growth journey, very much along the concept discussed in T2D3, but then also combining that strategic part and go-to-market planning with the execution and all of what you just ended with, which is connecting the right agents, making sure that you have your entire tech stack connected to the app. So it is the one source of truth and build and keeps on learning feedback loops and whatnot. So that bridge between both strategy and execution being hosted and within the T2D3 OS is what gets me the most excited. I've been using it for an intense 2 weeks right now with one of my engagements and seeing all of the power of having such access to such a powerful system. So that's what I'm excited about. But let me ask you a couple of questions. I'm very intrigued to know and understand what was the moment you figured out that the next version of T2D3 was not going to be a paper version, or rather something much bigger than that.
I found myself in the last year or so, year and a half, to be almost incapable of read a book or even read a blog article, read something for longer than 5 or 10 minutes, or to stay focused on something longer, like even a video. I do fall into the people who listen to 3-hour-long podcasts sometimes. So there's a couple of those that I do listen to. But other than that, when it's really about doing work, it's extremely hard for me to not constantly go, I can just type in a prompt and get this thing that I would take 3 hours to master or to read about it and to watch a couple of videos, to just do it while hacking my way through it, right? And winging it sometimes a little bit, but getting good results. And so when I realized that, I thought, well, rewriting a book or components of it with all kinds of instructions is just not going to be the way that the modern CMO or the modern student, if you will, is going to consume this. So yeah, that's, I think, where that realization came. And then you start using things like Cloud Code, and you realize how easy it is to build things that are really valuable, where people, of course, are not going to be impressed by the quality of the coding, because everybody can do that. But if the content that you put into it is really good, and we hope it is, and we'll show you in a little bit here, then you can build something meaningful. Hey, it's time. I just wanted to pop in for a second and let you know about something we've been running. If growth has started to feel a bit inconsistent and it's hard to know where to focus next, we're doing something called the T2D3 Growth Workshop. It's a 45-minute working session where we look at your go-to-market approach and build a custom plan for driving pipeline and growth. You can scan the QR code on the screen or head to kalungi.com/workshop to apply. All right, let's get back to the episode.
One thing that I believe this tool does that was very hard before was to also enlighten the user on what are some of the decisions that should be taken and the ones that should not. So I'd love to hear from you if you have a concrete example of what's the one go-to-market decisions that you've seen companies, SaaS companies between 1 to 10 million AR or 10 to 20 or 30 million AR. What are the GTM decisions they took that kills the company faster than, they could have, and how the T2D3 OS can change how teams can see what decisions to take and what not to take?
I think what a lot of marketers can probably relate to is that it's very hard, especially for early stage companies that just got funded or they're in a hurry for whatever reason, right? They're out of money or they're so excited to get their product to be successful, is that it is extremely hard to nail your niche, to lock an ICP in, to stay focused, to only try to land your value proposition initially with the people who you know will absolutely benefit from it. And one of the reasons it's hard, if you're the CMO and you come in and you try to convince your clients that it's not helpful to go after 3 verticals at the same time or to launch in 5 markets, is that it is really hard for them to see progress fast in the one market they could pick, right? And I think now that with all the AI capability, we can actually do content so much faster. We can get things ship things so much faster, publishing, email marketing. All the tools we have are accelerating in both volume and value. I think if you do this right, volume doesn't have to drive down the value, but of course there's discipline required for that. But when you can do all that, now it's actually easier to just let's do only this part of the market first, because you can do it in 3 or 4 weeks. And you can actually see that happen in front of you. And you'll see what I mean with that when you look at the tool, how fast you can do things now. And that's, I think, one of the biggest changes, Antoine, that it makes it easier for a company not to be worried to shut too many doors if they pick one ICP to go after for a couple of months, right? Because now they can do it in a couple of weeks and they can go to the next one after that. So that's probably the biggest learning.
Awesome.
Want to see it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let me start sharing my screen. And for people who are only listening, I'm going to try to kind of tell you what the screen that people on YouTube will see holds. So I always start with the typical Gantt chart view, because this is what Kalungi used to look like when you did an engagement with us, when you follow the T2D3 methodology. There's a playbook that has a lot of rows that basically tell you what to do in what sequence, right? How long certain things should take. So this is the world of the typical, we need to go build an ICP, right? And there's all kinds of things that go into that. And when you work with Kalungi, you get access to all these different details, all the content that goes with that. Like, how do you actually do that? How do you build that really good ICP? How do you build your P1, P2, P3 personas? So all this is now in the tool, and it has a full project management capability, all the things you would typically expect from good kind of project management. But now, and there's things here like you're looking at timeline now. There's basically a full project management system where you can manage sections and tasks and modules, etc., and do action items and to-do lists and all those things. So that it has all that. So yeah, you don't need other tools for that anymore. It comes out of the box. We also know, and there's ways here to visualize all this. We're targeting mostly with this product, targeting mostly fractional CMOs and CMOs, so they will have an ability here to create reports for their clients, like weekly updates, etc., that they can customize with what do you typically want to report on, right? And in what order, right? Do I want to show the Gantt chart, or do I just want to show the progress towards our OKRs? So you can do all that. But what's more important is you do those things. That project management, of course, is in the greater context of the strategy that you're developing. So I'm showing you an example of a small startup that's working on building their product and bringing that to market. And one of the first things they need to do, of course, is build kind of the foundation. And if you're a fractional CMO and you help them, you'll do some discovery first, understand really what is already in place. And I'll show you some of those pieces in a second. But it includes also interviewing everybody. Maybe you do a survey. But then you have to build a foundation, right? Get that ideal customer profile in place. Figure out if those customers really represent the personas that you're trying to build the value proposition, brand voice, etc. Which then allows you to go execute it, do the go-to-market. And not only the things you would do once or twice and then maybe every year, building your growth priorities, all those things. And if you've worked with Kalungi and with the T2D3 methodology, you'll recognize a lot of these things that are in here, like an Ansoff matrix that allows you to do this quickly. You don't really need big workshops anymore. What's really going to be helpful for a lot of you is that in the tool, there is a full library of everything that Kalungi and I before that learned, like all the growth initiatives that we see that are used by fractional CMOs, by B2B SaaS companies to grow, right? Oh, I'm going to launch a mobile version of the product. Okay, I'll add that as an initiative, a growth initiative. Maybe you say that's going to add $1 million in revenue. And then you see that pop up here, and that becomes kind of your strategic framework turned into tactics, right? What is the actual growth going to look like? And all of this started when I clicked here on the growth matrix, right? And all these tools that you see here have similar things as what I just showed you. There's a full ICP module that helps you build that ICP. There's a full module that helps you build all the personas, build the value prop, do a brand voice exercise, build that brand voice foundation, and then create messaging. So that all of that leads to you actually building your brand visuals from the brand standards that you need as a company, to the content that you need to build, a calendar that actually, I don't have one here, so I'll just skip through that quickly. But then also the day-to-day management. So there's an EOS style meeting structure here that allows you to run 1-hour meetings that have, for example, a bowler with metrics that you can track over time. There's tools here to quickly generate a stand-up between you and the team, and it pulls from what you've been working on, what's happening in your project, what's happening in your OKRs. The same if you want to prep a quick one-on-one with one of your team members. So there's all these tools here. I'll expand this menu on the left. It gives you a little bit of a sense. To manage work, OKRs is something I talked about already. So you'll have your OKRs in the tool in a way that's it's simple enough for a small B2B SaaS company, but complicated enough and capable enough to really be useful. A complete to-do system, like action items that you can manage and track. There's a mobile app, of course, to track all this. You can build all these. You can build your own dashboards with some widgets. The playbooks are very rich. So I showed you a playbook that we're using for this client, but you have a library of all these things that are going to be coming across your path as a marketing leader, a country expansion, doing maybe customer onboarding program, demand gen, things like launching a podcast, pricing and packaging. So for all these, there are actually full, full playbook templates that allow you, so this is an example of that allow you to quickly have a starting point in the app to kind of get going. So that's kind of the foundational philosophy. And then when you start, of course, the first moment that you get going, you'll do some kind of diagnostic. So there's a relatively deep module in the tool that allows you to, there's like 20, 30 pages here, that allows you to really assess what's in place. How does your client or your prospect or your own company rank in all the LLMs? How does it show up? What can you do about it? Can you add those action items or insights quickly to your own playbook, to your to-do items? It shows you what queries are being asked of the LLMs and sort of what then comes out, what the LLMs actually say. So a lot of this, Antoine, is based on the work that we see you need to do as a fractional CMO, right? It assesses all the personas, P1, P2, P3, along the buyer's journey. And then there's a lot more here that you would get from your typical like SEMrush type analysis, right? SEO performance. There's a lot here that you would normally have to gather from multiple tools. So all that is going to be available in one tool set. And then a little bit building on the book that you're publishing this summer, Antoine, there's also this full level up section that includes things like DISC assessment, or how do you, as a team, level up, things like storming, norming, performing, all these things that go together with a lot of marketing execution. How do you basically manage a team? And then finally, and then we'll stop with a quick demo. It's not so quick anymore. The go-to-market work is really built around how we as Kalungi manage engagement in the age of AI. And what's a fundamental insight there is that everything starts with the quality of signal. So we have this whole module called Core Signal that is nothing else than turning all the information that you as a company have. So these are documents, recorded sales calls, interviews with your prospects, with your personas. All these documents, they give you signal. They tell you something about what is our value proposition, what are our personas, what is our ICP. So all these documents, they get basically managed here. They get parsed, they get interpreted. There's a lot of real detail behind this that you can inspect on how, and this is, by the way, all AI, of course, how the system interprets those documents and what you now can use for your marketing. So it's a company, but then there's also competitive signal. So you have, at the company level, you have a lot of information, but the competitors are also, of course, very important. So we have two modules, one that shows you everything about you, and then the other that has all your competitors and how they do against these same kind of analysis, and a lot of details around that. And then what we've kind of built is this notion of that signal is something that you as a CMO need to make clearer, right? So we use this mining analogy. You haul information, you turn it into ore. Then if you make it more better developed, it becomes an assay, and then somebody will become concentrate, and we love to get it at some point to be the edge on the blade that allows you to do marketing really well. And everything travels through that kind of maturity or signal quality, if you will, to be the foundation for all the marketing you are going to do. And because we have this, it then becomes easier to build your ICP, to build your personas, to build your value proposition, to build your brand voice, because you use your signal to do so. And when you have that, and that's then your go-to-market foundation here, you see on the left all these modules, ICP builder, buyer persona builder, et cetera, where you do that, where you basically turn all that signal into what are the pain points? What are the triggers that drive my personas, my clients to actually look up and notice us, right? And become maybe a potential prospect. And all that gets managed here. And then once you do that, you now have access to these tools that allow you to also turn that into your marketing campaigns and execution. For example, there are agents here. We have a whole bunch of agents that allow you, like a blog writer, to turn the signal into blogs that get written on a regular basis, that get published. You can connect it to HubSpot, etc. So that's kind of that's the tool, Antoine. You've seen a lot of this, of course, but
thanks for walking us through and showing some of the capabilities, even though there is so much more to unpack here. This is very helpful. As we close today, I want to close up with one question and maybe a quick example of what's a decision you think this OS has surfaced since you've been using it that you would have not seen or taken in the past.
Yeah, one of the things that I always find, it's so easy to jump into execution and asking the strategic question, like, where are you actually on the journey? Like, have you reached product market fit? And these questions that are what we have used as gates to determine have you reached product market fit have been around forever, Antoine. None of these are new. But having them available in a tool like this, it's relatively easy for people to do their own assessment and then turn it into the next step is the actual economics of the plan. Like, how are you going to get to T2D3 growth levels? What are the unit economics that really underpin that, right? How many clients do you have today? What are they paying you today? What's your ARR? What are your churn rates? What are your customer acquisition costs, etc.? And tie your growth expectations. How do you see churn develop? How do you see ARPU grow? How do you see your MQL volume grow? And what are the initiatives that will underpin that? Making it so easy to do that here has really helped. If you kind of see it is all very easy to use, very dynamic, very visual. Make it easy for people to not skip these steps so that you actually build a real plan before you start executing. And you turn that's the other part that I like, you turn it into OKRs. So you have you have this grand vision, like in 3 years or 4 years from now, I'm going to be a 100 million ARR company. But now here you basically say, well, what am I actually going to do the next 90 days to get there, right? And these are just OKR examples. There's a whole library here. That's the other book we published, the book Finish Line Fridays, right? It has thousands of OKRs that you can say, hey, I'm a seed round company and I want to get some field marketing OKRs, right? Then you can basically use this tool to find these examples that allow you to quickly say, hey, what are good MVP level OKRs, for example, right? What are good OKRs when I'm in product market fit stage? So making it super concrete, Antoine, and then committing to it, commit my OKRs that then become your plan that you now in this tool can relatively easy execute on with a very specific project with the right tools to manage your team, to grow your team, to develop your team. I think that's really what this is unlocking, where we don't just jump into, okay, let's go publish some blogs next week, right? Or build a website. But we put this framing around it that makes it easier also for the marketing leader to communicate to their stakeholders, to their team, and to be focused on both strategy and execution and tactics at the same time with the same level of focus.
Very well. Stijn, thank you for walking us through T2D3 OS. Looking forward to seeing how we continue evolving, and thank you for your time. Talk to you in the next podcast. Thank you, sir.
All right, that's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching and sticking with us through the episode. We really appreciate it. And just one last reminder, if you're looking for a clearer plan around your go-to-market strategy and where to focus to drive pipeline and growth, the T2D3 Growth Workshop is available. It's a short working session where we'll review your approach and build a custom go-to-market plan for your business. If you haven't already applied, scan the QR code on the screen or head to columbia.com/workshop. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.